Brenda Odero with Strathmore University, Nairobi, Kenya. And Brenda has developed a governance paper with a colleague also in Kenya at Egerton University, David Nderitu. So Brenda, please join me.
Good morning. Did you know that Kenya ranks third in sub-Saharan Africa in AI readiness? Well, we do. My name is Brenda Odero. My co-author, David Nderitu, and I will look at regulatory gaps in the review of ethics in AI in global health research. So, despite having regulatory frameworks, ethical frameworks, legal frameworks, there's minimal attention within these frameworks in the review of ethics and AI in health research. So there's first minimal attention, and they're very inadequate. So that is within the Kenyan context. So the resources we have in looking at global health research is two documents which we're going to look at. So it's the Data Protection Act of 2019 and the National Ethical Guidelines for Biomedical Research for Human Participants. But first, a backstory on readiness in AI in the world. So the Government Artificial Intelligence Index of 2021 rated different countries in the world on their readiness to uptake AI. So the pillars were the government, the technology sector, data and infrastructure. You can clearly see on the slide the average uptake of AI is 47.7%. So all this is in percentile. So clearly the first country there is the US of A, the second is Singapore, the third is the United Kingdom. So David and I decided to look at the pillar of government, which within the government it has, the middle part of it is governance and ethics. So they sought to ask the question whether the legal, ethical frameworks within the different countries are trustworthy, or are they legitimate? Are they sufficient? So let's go back to Kenya. We've seen how the world is. Let's go back to Kenya. Kenya ranks third, like I earlier said, I'm very proud of it. So it ranks third at 45.5%, which is very close to the average point of things. But even if we have this readiness in AI, it's very evident that Kenya is using AI already on the ground for health surveillance, is using it for diagnosis. So we're already using AI, but are we regulating the use of AI? So I want to mention that the top three countries in Africa in AI readiness, one is Mauritius, the second is South Africa. So it's important to note that Mauritius is at the top because it already has a national AI strategy. It has an AI council, and it has training throughout the whole country. So that's why it's put at the top. So they already have things in place, regulations in place, and systems that are already working in the regulation of AI and in different facets of healthcare. So as you recall, I said that we're going to look at two documentations. So these are just a snapshot. I'll be looking at different snapshots and the regulatory gaps that these specific documents have. So the first document we're looking at is the Data Protection Act. So the Section 28 of the Data Protection Act allows for consent when collecting data. But it's not clear in the document how the data is going to be stored, how it's going to be used, especially in AI research. of healthcare. Another regulatory gap is in Section 35 that permits collection of data, of automated and profiled data. So they say in the Data Protection Act that they will tell you, they will give you a notification. How will you give me a notification of how you're going to use my data? So that's a rather big gap that we found in the Data Protection Act. How will you sort consent from me of already automated data? Another gap, I can explain the garbage on this slide. Section 35 clearly states that, like we've seen in earlier presentations on data sharing from this country to another country, but we don't know how data participants their respect is going to be upheld. How is the data going to be used in other countries continuously? Because this data will be used continuously. So is the data being dumped in that country without the consent of the data participants? So this is something to also, a gap that we also found out. The other guideline we have, like I said, was the biomedical guideline that we have. I did a command F, and there was only one find of AI. So it's there, yes, but it's in passing. Emergent issues in AI. So they just say these guidelines generally look at emergent issues in AI. So what are our recommendations? We used the Emmanuel et al. Framework to form recommendations in looking at how best RECs can be well equipped in the future. So what you're going to see in the slides moving forward is the specific principles in the Emmanuel et al. Framework and the outcomes we see if the principles were used. I hope we are still together. Okay. So first is community engagement. This is a very, very, very important principle. So we know that many AI systems have a European context. So we would want researchers on the ground to have a touch of the African context, to include a human-centered AI feel within every system that we have. So the job of the RECs at this point is to, I know as bioethicists and as ethicists and within RECs, community engagement is not a compulsory thing to put in your research proposal. We propose that it should be a facet of any proposal within the research of AI in global healthcare. It's a requirement, we need it. Second is collaborative partnerships. It would be good to have, we know that collaborative partnerships means that we have many stakeholders, so from the deployers to the government, to the policymakers, to us in this room. It's important for us to collaborate and maybe hold I propose an establishment of an ad hoc committee to conduct inclusive stakeholder engagements with the communities and all the stakeholders I had mentioned. So we see the outcome of this. If this principle is used, we see a future where every research proposal looked at by the REC will have data sharing agreements. So we will know who the data will belong to, how the data is going to be used. Within that agreement, we know at the end of the day, we're not taking each other to court. And the data is being used properly, and we know, does it belong to the public sector, does it belong to the private sector? So we will have transparency in the end. Social value is another principle. So who is benefiting from this data? The data participants. Will they benefit from the data? And also a facet of vulnerability. Not every solution needs AI in health research care. And if it does, and they're vulnerable people. And remember that vulnerability in every research proposal is different, and in every context is different. women who are pregnant in your country are vulnerable. Maybe in another country, they feel that they're not vulnerable. So we, as recs, they need to justify this. So we propose that an AIA, an algorithmic impact evaluation report. So an AIA is basically going to look at the risk and the evaluation for the future. So an AIA is basically a template that shows the societal value of every AI research report that you bring forward as a researcher. So it will tell the recs that this is what the data is going to, the AI is going to do, this is how long the data is going to be used, these are the benefits the community, the country, the region is going to get from it. Scientific validity. So, like I had earlier mentioned, that not every research proposal or solution needs AI, so we need to be very careful as rec members, as ethicists, as researchers who are submitting to rec members. So we need to weigh how valid our research is when putting it forward to a rec member. So does it justify it for it to be within the AI space? So recs should ensure that interventions align to the study objectives, like we do for any other study. Fair selection of participants or study population. So selection needs to be based on scientific importance and not convenience. There's one paper by MD Francisco that looks at a viewfinder, a vein viewfinder. So his study incorporates different colors of skin, it incorporates the size of the body. So this is for doctors to actually look at cannulation and look at injections and just have a feel of where the vein is for people who can't find their veins. And they also incorporated stretch marks into their AI system because stretch marks can look like veins, apparently, according to the study. So it's very important to be inclusive and diverse when coming up with research proposals. So we propose that recs have a checklist of non-discriminatory and non-bias, depending on the study. So this checklist has to be flexible because different research papers have different goals and different research studies. So recs need to come up with a checklist where they look at, does this study have bias? Does this study have discriminatory tendencies? For risk-benefit ratio, we need to weigh the risks. The benefits need to outweigh the risks. There's, in different research proposals, focus is on the physical harm, is on physical risks, sometimes psychological, but we forget that bias is also a risk in itself when it comes to AI research. So it's very important for recs to have an evaluation of the algorithm to see whether there's a certain risk, an algorithmic bias within it, aside from the psychological and physical harms. Independent review, so this is the foundation of recs. We need an ad hoc committee member. Review should be very far away from the deployers. It should be independent from anyone who is making the AI system. That's one. An outcome we see is where we have an ad hoc committee member, a separate ad hoc committee member who comes in when there are AI studies being reviewed. They don't have to be permanently within the rec. Training is also very important. We do trainings in Kenya for different bioethics and AI training. So I think it's important that it should be compulsory for every rec member to be trained on AI ethics in health research. Informed consent, this has been something that has been really spoken about. Terms and conditions are not informed consent. I think we all agree. But if I'm looking at an AI system or I'm asking for consent, let's say online consent, it should be short, it should be simple, it should be something that I can read, see the risks, see the burdens, and immediately say, yes, I agree, no, I don't. It should be lay term language for everyone to be able to understand what I am saying. ongoing respect of participants and communities. We tend to do studies as researchers and forget that the community needs to know what's happening with their data. And I don't mean just a presentation like I'm doing or publishing work. We need to go back to the community where you collected the data, where you took the data from, and tell them exactly what you are doing with the data. So we see an outcome where RECs create an AIA model template that focuses on the impacts of AI. So every research proposal will show if the data is going to be ongoing. Are we done with the data? Have we gotten what we wanted to get? Have they received their benefits? Is it reversible? Is it short-term, for a short time period? Is it perpetual? Is it forever? Will the data continuously be collected, and will the communities continue to get their benefits? Lastly, after seeing all the sessions from the beginning to the end, I think I'm on 50-50 on soft and hard law, but we really hope that some of these principles that we've used are used to form policy through education. We can propose this Emmanuel et al. Framework within policy to form law at the end of the day. So ideally, we are not proposing a framework because the framework is there. We need to use the principles that we already have and incorporate them in law and policy. And I thank you all for listening to me. If you're not an executive producer and maybe I didn't put you here, maybe in season 2, I'll put you here. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brenda. That was very clear, and congrats to Kenya for being third in Sub-Saharan Africa on readiness. We have about 10 minutes. I'll say another fun fact. The US also ranks first in readiness to abandon our readiness. Yeah. So as we know that well from the pandemic. Yes, we have a question in the back.
Thank you, Brenda, and congratulations on what I think is a very interesting and well structured presentation to us today. My question to you is, given the relative lack of regulator preparedness that exists among countries of the geographical south, what do you think is what has made Kenya become so prepared and give you this high ranking of readiness among countries of the geographical south?
Thank you. I think why Kenya gets ranked, I think that's the question, why Kenya is being ranked to that level. I think we, as a Kenyan, speaking as a Kenyan, we don't want to be left behind. We have that mentality that we want to go with the wave, and the wave dictates that we need regulations for AI. So the government is doing a great job. We have different systems. We have NACOSTI that accredits the RECs. So it's a body that ensures that we are moving with the wave. We also have a bioethics committee. We have systems in place, I'd say. The systems in place push us to move forward within, like for example, now the AI space. So I would say we don't want to be left behind, and we're moving with what is currently happening. So the government is really helping. The researchers on the ground are helping. So I would say we have systems in place that are making us move forward.
If you were to give credit to one sector of the society, would you say that initiative started with bioethics committees, with advocates, or
Yes.
with the government itself, or NGOs?
Okay. They'll be watching this, so. I would say first, I think advocates first, the bioethics committees, I would think. And also, let me not just say it's a Kenyan thing. I would say we've been helped by countries abroad, the US, we've been mentored by the US, we've been mentored by the UK. So I would say just the fact that we are proactive enough and we've been mentored by people outside. So I'd say first, the government came in after they saw there was advocacy, they saw that these guys are becoming better and better within the ethics space. So yeah, it started with advocacy, it started with getting help from the UK and mentorship. Mentorship is very important. So say also mentorship from countries that are already high ranking. Yeah.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. Yeah.
Excuse me. I helped you reflecting about this paper, and my name is David. I'll go back to the first concern about what makes Kenya rank high. I think it's generally because Kenya embraced digital innovations from the word go, and apart from the assistance from the government, the private sector has been playing a very great role in that. Kenya is among the first countries that started using what we call mobile money transfer, and it has this system. This technology was transferred to the neighboring and the entire African country. So I can say that that fact itself makes Kenya be ready for this. And now with AI, it's still there. So our only worry is that we don't have regulations for this, and that's why we came up with this proposal. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, why don't we do one here and then we go to the back.
Thank you. Very nice presentation, thank you. I have 2 points. One is that maybe it's just a matter of phrasing, but it sounds like you want the Rex to do all the hard work. Because Rex are people, and most of them probably not trained in AI. Of course, you mentioned training, but I just wonder whether the recommendation should be researchers or AI practitioners should be, etc., etc., etc. That's the first point. The second point is about community engagement. So again, in all the GFBR meetings, community engagement is the answer to a lot of things. And people who practice community engagement, who engage with the communities, know that it is really hard. There are many challenges? Who is the community? How do we engage them? Is it the whole country? Is it the small population in the village? And are we getting representation? Are the representatives the best people to go to? Who do we engage with? Whether or not it'll be a tokenistic once it's in as a tick box. So I think a lot of things need to be considered. So community engagement is very nice, but it's really, really fraught with challenges. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Okay, cool. I'll start with the first one where Rex do all the hard work. In hindsight, it seems so from my presentation, but we are reviewing what the researchers are doing. So researchers are also doing a lot of hard work. So all those templates will give you, as a researcher, we need to see you filling them. We need to see a research proposal that aligns to the SOPs that we'll have, let's say, in AI. I think it should be a shared responsibility. It should not just be the REC's responsibility, especially when it comes to researching AI. Because at the end of the day, if we make these recommendations known and we give them checklists of how now we're going to be looking at AI research, they will have to comply and they will have to also work hard on their side as well. So I think it's a shared responsibility. I agree, community engagement can be very tricky in terms of just finding out who are you engaging, how will you engage. There are very many facets of community engagement, from consultation, participation. So I think the best way we can do it is do it in phases, not all at once. So we can do consultation first, then we do participation, then enrollment, so that we see, are we engaging the right people? Are we doing the right thing? So if we do it in different phases, I think it would maybe help. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
It's working. Thank you so much. It was a really great and clear presentation. I had a question about the challenges of assessing algorithmic bias in prospect. So if we're turning to the RECs or whoever it is that's trying to figure it out, we often don't necessarily see that bias presenting until it's actually being implemented. So I wondered if you had any thoughts about how to practically implement that. Is it figuring out what sort of risk signals there are, and then maybe having, I don't know, another body like a DSMB for AI to monitor that, or is it looking at the learning environment and the data that's there? Like, how do you do that as a research ethics committee that's looking at that before it's being rolled out in prospect?
So let me just get your question right. So how are we going to implement monitoring and evaluation of AI research?
Well, no, so is the recommendation under the risk-benefit ratio when RECs are evaluating and looking for the subpoint on algorithmic bias? So usually that's before the implementation of the research. So you may not know that you're going to see it when they're at that point of reviewing. So how practically can REC members be looking for that, or are there other complementary things that have to happen over the point in the research to monitor for that, or have risk signals that would say, okay, we have to stop, or just thinking about the practicalities of algorithmic bias in research.
Okay. I haven't thought of that. That's a very good question. I would think that it's usually done before. Researchers do it beforehand, but Rex will see it after. So I think that now there's a disconnect. There's already a disconnect in looking at the algorithmic bias. So I think if we, like you said, we could have monitoring and evaluation from the start to the finish. So maybe that could be the solution. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. I think that would be maybe a solution.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think it's really important, challenging. All of these are very, very important questions, but and I gather maybe there's a little bit of prospective review if data are coming or algorithms are coming with a prior history of training, right? Just similar to how if NREC was reviewing a phase 3 trial, they would want to know, well, what happened in the earlier phases that warrants moving on.